But so to kind of close out our animation week, which ended
Mhm.
up being a real hodgepodge because I guess we were both bored and consumed a lot of other media. Uh,
Yeah.
uh, we decided to revisit at least for me, it was a childhood classic, The Rescuers Down Under.
Yes. And I hadn't actually never seen this movie before, so it was.
And Daniel, you actually went out to watch the original Rescuers to get context. I didn't end up having time for that.
Yeah. I felt it was a good idea because it was actually a good idea because then I knew who the characters were, yeah, and what the rescuers were all about.
Uh, well, Daniel, for those who are new to the series, what is The Rescuers all about?
So the Rescuers is basically a group of mice who help kids who are in trouble. The first one was the two mice, Bernard, right?
Yep,
Bernard, yeah, Bernard and shoot,
Miss Bianca.
Miss Bianca, who were voiced by Bob Newhart and Ava Gabor, respectively. They go out to help a little girl, orphan girl who gets kidnapped by a evil whatever she is, and to find a diamond in the Louisiana swamp. In this movie, they Bernard and Miss Bianca go to Australia
Hmm.
because a kid gets kidnapped by a poacher who's voiced by George C. Scott.
Yep.
Um, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's basically a mouse UN that actually cares about child trafficking. I guess is the way you could put it.
Yes. Just a bit of irony there.
Yeah. Um, so yeah. So this is one that I think I remember seeing in the theaters. If I did see it in the theaters, I watched it a bunch as a kid. And I mentioned this to my one friend. He said, "Oh yeah, my siblings and I wore out the VHS tape while watching this thing."
Yeah.
And there's a reason they could do that. This is actually not a particularly long movie, at an hour and 20 minutes,
Yeah.
just short of that actually. But it's actually padded, which sounds strange.
Yeah, there's a whole subplot in there with one of the ways they get around is they fly on the back of an albatross.
Yeah,
Um,
which in the original was Orville, who was voiced by the great Jim Jordan. Who
yes.
he was in a lot of those Disney animated movies. Like I believe he was the sheriff in Robin Hood.
Oh, okay. Um, and D Rhino says he's never heard of it. I guess it must be a generational thing.
Eh, Yeah, so well, the original Rescuers came out in 1977, which wasn't exactly peak Disney animation time.
Yeah, and to answer your question, D Rhino, this one came out in 1990, which was right at kind of near the beginning of the Disney Renaissance.
Yeah, like you'd already had a Little Mermaid come out and kind of clear the way. This one ended up being kind of a misstep.
Yeah. And I think they were going to make this into a TV show, but then they ended up doing Chip and Dale instead.
Yeah, I don't know if that's true, but like I was saying, like it wouldn't surprise. I don't know if I had any information on that, but I said it wouldn't surprise me if like Chip and Dale's Rescue Rangers, Rescuers,
Hmm.
weirdly similar concepts.
Yeah. But yeah, um, I had heard of this movie, but I had never watched it. I'll be honest, I was not much of a Disney kid growing up. Um,
Whereas I was.
yeah. I was more Looney Tunes actually. And I was into like Ninja Turtles and Power Rangers and yeah.
See, where I wasn't allowed to watch Power Rangers. So I think we're starting to see where our Venn diagrams are slightly different.
Yeah. um But yeah, the only time I ever watched Disney movies was like at school
Okay.
or at birthday parties.
Like they kept making you watch Willy Wonka.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So in the original, the Albatross was voiced by Jim Jordan,
Hmm.
but he had passed by the time they were making the second one. So, because he died in 1988.
Yeah.
And so they brought in John Candy to be the new Albatross Wilbur.
Yeah. Uh,
And I would actually say that I love John Candy. I think I made that very clear with our Planes, Trains, and Automobiles review.
yeah.
Uncle Buck, unimpeachable classic.
Yeah.
Um, I, I I I liked. I used to watch his Camp Candy TV show.
Yeah. I did
This
too. Yeah.
movie honestly needed less John Candy, when I feel dirty for even thinking it. Because the thing, okay, so here's kind of the plot. So this little boy named Cody in Australia is basically he's a friend of the animals and who can talk to him.
Mhm.
It's a Disney animated show. Don't ask questions. Uh,
Yeah.
and he ends up saving this great golden eagle named Marahute.
Mhm.
And boy, I didn't really question it at the time, but there is not a single species of eagle that has ever existed that is as big as Marahute.
That's what I was wondering too. I'm
Uh,
like, wow, that is a big eagle. That is like Tolkien Lord of the Rings big.
yeah, like he can ride on this eagle, and he is dwarfed on its back. His torso is like the size of its talons.
Yeah. Yeah.
I, there was an eagle that lived in New Zealand and possibly Australia called Haast's eagle that was big enough to carry off children, but not like that.
Yeah.
uh, we're talking more. It yanks a small child in with its claws sunk in and predates them.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's more like he has a pterosaur named Marahute who is his friend. But
Yeah.
um, but yeah, that's one of his acceptable breaks because it looks awesome. Like
Yeah.
that this is a very visually striking movie, and even the soundtrack enhances that. Like
Oh, yeah.
I thought that opening where it just goes boom.
Yeah.
Like it's hard to describe it as like as they're going through the credits, they're just rushing along this field of shrubs out in
Yeah.
the outback, and it's just immediately sets the location and the tone.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It had that. I wonder if that wasn't an early test for the Lion King.
Possibly, like, or at least they
Yeah.
brought the idea into it.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So this boy Cody, he saves Marahute the golden eagle,
Mhm.
and finds out that her mate had died, but she has these three eggs that she's trying to take care of herself.
Mhm.
And he goes after he saves this eagle. He goes back into he goes back out into the woods and gets caught in a trap. And McLeach, the what do you call it? The hunt
Poacher.
poacher. Thank you. Hunter is too good of a word for him. The
Yeah.
poacher who's out there in the outback, just pillaging his way through the whole place.
Yeah.
Realizes that he had gotten the father eagle, and when he finds one of Merahude's feathers in Cody's pack, he realizes, oh, this kid knows where the other eagle is.
Hmm.
So he takes him to pump him for information,
Right.
which prompts the mouse who he rescued to call in the help from the aid society.
Hmm.
Uh, cut to New York, where Bernard is trying to work up the courage to ask Miss Bianca to marry him.
Right. And he comically loses the engagement ring. It just kind of bounces around, and yeah.
Yep. And she never figures it out. Miss Bianca is not the smartest person.
No.
She's lucky she's pretty.
Yes.
Which it's interesting, like the power of animation. I would say that in both versions, both in the 70s and the 1990 version,
Hmm.
they managed to um, they managed to imbue the character with a lot of charm and grace.
Yeah.
And Miss Gabor's performance also helps with that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So you can see why Bernard is smitten with her.
Yeah. And of course you've got Bob Newhart doing his usual, Bob Newhart, befuddled,
Yeah, in a nice performance though. Weirdly enough, I think if I found out that uh, John Candy had more lines in this movie than he did, I would not be surprised
yeah,
because John Candy talks a lot.
yeah. I wonder. So John Candy liked to improvise a lot.
hmm
I wonder how many of those lines were improvised.
Probably a decent number.
Yeah,
So like, yeah, they go to they have the nod to the passing of Jim Jordan because they go to Orville's place and they say, "Oh, see Wilbur now,"
yeah,
because he and per John Candy's contract, he's rocking out to classic rock as they enter.
yeah,
I, I, I had always thought that was just an Uncle Buck ism. Apparently, that's a thing in all of his movies.
yeah. Spaceballs.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah. Barf.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, he flies them out, and this is kind of where the movie diverges into the part that matters and John Candy,
Yeah,
uh, because he hurts himself landing, and so he gets taken to these doctors, and he spends the rest of the movie trying to catch up with the main characters and doesn't contribute anything to the plot ever again past that point.
yeah. Other than sitting on the eagle eggs, that's about it.
Which isn't necessarily a thing he even needed to do.
Right. Yeah.
Uh, in fact, I think the reason they had to do this is that logically, okay, so the original rescuers, the albatross gets them to the swamp. They're in the swamp. They're in the general vicinity of where the girl they're trying to save is at.
Yeah.
Uh, Wilbur in this movie is kind of the Eagles in Lord of the Rings. Like, well, why didn't Gandalf just call the Eagles in and fly them right there?
Yeah.
Except that there wouldn't be any excuse about, oh, the the fallen humans, I forget their name right now, would
Uh,
have,
the not.
would have
Yeah.
the Nazgul would have caught them
Oswald, yeah.
on their flying mounts.
Right. Yeah.
So there, but the thing is, like, there wouldn't have been any. It would have been a very short movie if he hadn't been injured, because it'd
Right.
be like, oh, you want to help save this kid? Yeah, just fly us to the spot in the outback. Thanks.
Yeah.
They kind of had to injure him, or they
Yeah.
had to have him immediately turn around.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That was kind of where the padding comes into it. Yeah.
Yeah, because like mind you, the scenes where he's being operated on by these quack surgeons and his quack surgeon and his nurses, it was funny.
Yeah.
Lots of good slapstick and stuff, but does not add to the plot in the slightest.
No, it doesn't. Yeah. Other than to keep him occupied. Yeah.
Yeah. So the plot that matters is Bernard and Miss Bianca with Miss Estelia Shayla there,
Yeah. Yeah.
Jake, getting their way across the outback in
Right. Yeah.
an attempt to get to where McLeach is holding him, and and you also have this subplot where Cody is stuck in a animal prison with a really stupid lizard voiced by Charlie Adler.
Yeah.
Um, and like you could have done without one of those scenes. I think the thing is this was like slated to be a cinematic release, and so the better cut of this movie would have been about an hour long, but
Yeah.
you couldn't have put that in theaters for full price.
No, you would have had to have dropped that on the Disney Channel.
Right. And this was an expensive production, relatively speaking,
Hmm.
because this was actually, I believe, their first digital movie,
Mm.
from what I saw on Wikipedia. Uh, it had I would say it has lush animation all over the place. This is not
Yeah.
TV grade animation.
That's no, it isn't. Yeah, it's I would say, you know, definitely the beginning of the, what you would expect from the beginning of the Disney Renaissance in terms of the quality of the animation.
Right. And and of course you have George C. Scott giving a great villainous performance as I, it's interesting where he is what a six he is smart for a sixth grader. He does
Yeah,
actually make a joke at one point.
yeah,
I knew I didn't pass the third grade for nothing.
yeah, yeah. And yeah, and he has a salamander, pet salamander that
Oh, monitor lizard.
monitor lizard. Sorry, yeah, right, right, yeah, monitor. Joanna was her name. Yeah,
Yeah, Joanna was great.
yeah,
They managed to imbue that character with a lot of life in the animation.
yeah,
And of course, it's voiced by the great Frank Welker, who is all over this movie. Because if it's a '90s movie and you have animals to voice, it's Frank Welker. It's
yeah,
almost always Frank Welker. He was the anaconda in Anaconda.
yeah.
Um, he he was like whenever on The Simpsons they needed an episode, like if it was just a normal episode where they needed the dog to bark once or twice, they would get Dan Castellaneta to do it. If they needed like an extended episode about Santa's Little Helper with a lot of emotion in the voice, they
Uh,
would bring in Frank.
yeah. Yeah, he also voiced the young Spock in Star Trek 3 as as he's getting older.
Huh?
Yeah,
I didn't
and
know that.
yeah, and he was Megatron.
Yeah, yes, that's right. Yes, like
Yeah,
voice acting great all over this movie if you
yeah,
know what to listen for, like I do, thanks to Futurama soundtrack or commentary tracks.
yes,
Um, and like the first 20 minutes of this movie are arguably the best part of it because
hmm
it is just Cody going through a beautifully animated Australian outback and jungle.
hmm
Uh, they had so many scenes of flying. Like the animators were in love with scenes of characters flying, and they did a great job every time with like 3D tracking and
oh yeah,
expressiveness and like there was so much attention to detail that at one point when Cody was doing a free fall, like for just a moment there were tears in one of his eyes as he
yeah,
was getting hit by the wind.
yeah.
But sorry, I'm just geeking out about the animation here. Um,
All right,
it-
yeah,
yeah, so those basically, as you'd expect, the little boy dies in the end, and McLeach manages to kill off the Eagles, thus ensuring himself a fat payday. And Miss Bianca, disgusted with with Bernard's failures, refuses to marry him and runs off with Jake. No, that is that's not what happened. Basically, the opposite of what I just said there.
Yes,
Happy endings all around.
indeed, yeah.
Um, but Bernard gets to have some nice character growth.
hmm
Where I kind of felt that John Candy's character stole too much screen time from him
hmm
was possibly that like it could have been a nice rule. So they have this thing where Jake shows him how to get around the outback. You take a big animal, you bully it, and you go, I've got a long way to go, and you're going to take me there, and we're not going to fight about it. All right.
Yeah.
And later on, Bernard uses that. I feel like there could have been like a rule of three there, like where he tried and failed.
Oh, yeah.
Because the movie is kind of feels like it's about him becoming a bit more rugged
hmm
in the attempts to be worthy of Miss Bianca, who again,
Right. Yeah.
not kind of a bimbo as far as mice go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
but yeah, I get it's like, but I get where all the comedy relief came from because I remember really loving all of those jokes as a kid. As an adult, I liked most of them.
Yeah.
But as a kid, I wasn't noticing. Huh? It feels like, uh, like the funny Eagle Man who's voiced by John Candy isn't adding anything to the question of the story.
Yeah.
You know, haha, funny Birdman got hit in the butt with a needle.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Mm.
final thoughts, Daniel. As a first timer, what did you think of this one?
I enjoyed it. Yeah. It's yeah, it was a fun fun romp. I would say uh what Disney should be in terms of their storytelling and in terms of the entertainment value. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's part of what inspired it. Someone I follow on Twitter mentioned this in like things he liked when he was a kid or things he grew up on. It's like, I haven't seen that movie for a while, and we just spent last week lambasting Wish a bit for its flop. So
Yeah.
let's see what peak Disney looks like.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Give it a watch. It is on Disney Plus. If I know some people don't like Disney Plus, but
Yeah. But it's been available on home video since the 90s in various formats. So if you wanted to go find it used somewhere,
oh
then
yeah, I'm sure you could find a used DVD or Blu-ray somewhere for relative low amount of money.
in as much as this is a relatively obscure movie.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, I think we've exhausted these topics.
Yep. Um, so that was the end of our little review-a-thon there. Don't know that we'll be doing it again, but
Yeah.